Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. I'm Cynthia Pula. My guest today is Terri Reese, and Terri is running for Congress
That is correct.
in in the state of New Jersey.
Mhm.
Um, so tell us a little bit about why you decided to run.
Excellent. So first, thank you for having me today, Cynthia. I'm really excited about being on your show. Yeah, my name is Terri Reese. I'm a lifelong Atlantic County resident. I live in a little town called Northfield and still in the same house that I grew up in. And I decided to run for Congress to bring a true, authentic South Jersey voice into the halls of the Capitol. I'm somebody who has faced the same struggles, overcome the same challenges, and literally and figuratively weathered the same storms that my constituents have faced. And I think that that's important to bring into government as somebody who is actually from the area, who understands the ups and downs, the challenges and the opportunities of the area. And when Donald Trump got elected in for the second term and was inaugurated in January, and we saw that he was going to be like ruling by pen and making all of these edicts, I spoke to my son and he said, "Mom, this is your time." He says, "This is your time where you can run. You're a smart girl, you're a smart woman. You understand the issues. You're a fighter. You are fierce and you're exactly what South Jersey needs to take on Jeff Van Drew and make things better for South Jersey." And I
So
said,
have you,
okay.
so have you ever run for anything before?
I have not run for any political offices before. I haven't held any, if we're not talking about high school or college, where I held certain offices in different, groups and clubs. But I also don't think that that's necessarily important when running for the House of Representatives because it is supposed to be populated by people who are representative of their constituents. And that's one of the things that I definitely bring to the table.
So you wrote um, "Driven by Integrity,
Mhm.
Committed to Community." Explain that.
Sure. So I asked a friend of mine who owns a print shop when I announced that I was running for office. And I said, I need some business cards. I need some, a slogan, logo, some buttons. Like, what have you got for me? I'm running for Congress. This is my office and everything. And she actually came up with that slogan based on how she knew me and knew of me because she
Huh?
had worked with me at Apple years and years ago. And driven by integrity to me is doing the right thing. Even when it's hard, you do the right thing. And committed to community is I was very fortunate. I went to mainly regional high school. I graduated. I also went to the University of Pennsylvania where I graduated, and I could have gone anywhere. And I came home because I love where I live. I'm committed to where I live and staying here. We have an old saying in South Jersey that you have sand in your toes. And I definitely have sand in my toes. I don't like to be far from the beach. And I'm committed to making this community better, to help it overcome, like I said before, its challenges and struggles to where it can actually achieve the greatness that I know it has within it.
How far are you from the Atlantic?
8 miles.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I can actually go down the street to the end of my street and see the bay and the Atlantic City skyline.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, so when did you declare your candidacy?
So I did a soft launch at the end of April where, before April, I had gone around to the different groups. I was participating in protests. I was going to different meetings. I was asking their leadership who was running for Congress in 2026 against Jeff Van Drew, and nobody was. And I had reached out to some different people to see who had run previously to see if they were running, and they never got back to me. So I said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go out there. People need to know that there is somebody who wants to take the lead and go after this. So I did a soft launch on Facebook in April and letting everybody know, got a wonderful response from people who were following me already, but also from the general public, expanded to other social media platforms as well. And then I officially submitted my paperwork with the FEC in the beginning of July. So like July 3rd, July 10th, somewhere around
Mhm.
there.
So you said that you contacted previous candidates and they never got back to you.
Hmm.
There's no sense of continuity in politics today. Like you're running this year, and the person that ran 2 years ago and two years before that, there's never a kind of like a community of these people where you where information is passed on from one candidate to the other.
Hmm.
This way, the wheel is not reinvented over and over again. And I
Hmm.
think that's one of the problems with politics today.
And Cynthia, I agree. So after I had announced on Facebook, the gentleman who had run 2 years ago actually reached out to me and said that he would be happy to be a resource for me if I had any questions. But he was not. He was glad to see that somebody was stepping up because he didn't want to do it again. You know,
Uh-huh.
there is a gentleman who declared a couple months ago that has run twice before and is coming back. And then there's another candidate who is running who declared at just about a week with the FEC about a week before I did, who is from Princeton but moved down to Mays Landing a couple months before he had declared.
Hmm.
And I believe there's a fourth gentleman who lives in Gloucester, but I don't know very much about him. I haven't been able to find a lot of research about it. But to your point about there isn't a lot of continuity, I feel, and this might get me in a little bit of trouble with the party bosses or so on and so forth. But I think that they've written off South Jersey. I think that they are fine with it being the way that it is because they know that they have Democratic strongholds in other districts throughout the state and that they're not really concerned about this area. And I have heard that the party bosses will not support a Democratic candidate in this area unless they know that that candidate can win. And I think that that's wrong. I think that we should be pushing to the Democratic Party, as well as whether it's county parties or state parties, should be pushing to have their candidates and looking to like, we can win this. I think having the defeatist attitude is like, well, we can't win, so we're not even going to try, is not the right attitude to take. And I know that I can beat Jeff Andrew.
But the thing is, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm thinking of previous candidates
Hmm.
could mentor you in the nuts and bolts of the district and what you should and should not do. That's
Hmm.
not happening.
No, I'm very fortunate in that I have people who are working with my campaign. I call them my campaign leadership committee, who have worked on other campaigns in the past over the years. So they're able to share their best practices with me as well as things that didn't work as well so that we can try a different path. But I'm also
That's
a different
good.
kind of candidate, so I also don't mind doing things that are new, trying things that are different. Because frankly, the things that have been done in the past, especially since 2020, 2022, and 2024, didn't work to defeat the incumbent.
Hmm.
So we need to do something different.
So, you've, y- I'm sorry. What
That's
would
okay.
what would you say about the role of the parties? The does the party in your district more or less overlook you?
I think so. I think that um, I think that the reason that they overlook me is that they're all about money. And a lot of party politics, and not just in New Jersey or South Jersey, but I think that throughout the country, looks at money. So the candidate who has the most money is the candidate we're going to follow and we're going to win. I think that Citizens United was an atrocious decision and needs to be overruled or rewritten. And I fully support what the amendments that Senator Adam Schiff, and Congressman McGovern have, where they're talking about getting rid of Citizens United and restructuring campaign finance as well. Because the thing that's important to me is getting the votes. So I understand that fundraising is important because you need your materials, your business cards, your flyers, all of that. but I don't think that the person who should be supported by the party is the person who has the most money in their campaign account. I think it should be
Mhm,
the person that has the best ideas and the best chance of winning. But unfortunately, people look at dollar signs,
mhm,
and that's, it's endemic throughout the country in every aspect, and it's horrible. I signed the candidate integrity pledge, which means that I am foregoing PAC money, super PAC money, money from big money donors, special interest groups, lobbyists, and dark money nonprofits. I run a 100% grassroots campaign by both funding and volunteers. And I'm
mhm.
proud of that because, as I said, I don't believe that money belongs in politics, and I'm standing by that by signing this pledge.
Um, there's local elections in Albany this year,
Mhm,
and one of the candidates who raised a lot of money, she sent out a flyer stating how many signatures she got to qualify for the ballot.
mhm,
And I'm thinking, what a waste of money. Who cares about how many signatures you got? What are you going to do for the city?
mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'll
yeah,
have to do the same in March is when I have to collect my signatures, but I need like I think 200, which is not going to be hard to get to be on the ballot.
200?
I think so. I could be wrong with the number, but I'm not concerned about the signatures. I'm confident that with the supporters that I have that have been following me and that I've been meeting throughout the district, that I'll be able to get that number. And that's the minimum number. You just have to have that number. So if you get more, great. But yeah,
So have you been contacted, um, besides me, by the media?
yeah. Mhm. Yep.
How are you
You're
doing?
about I want to say my third or my fourth podcast slash interview that I've done.
Hmm?
Um, I've also been very active in sending out press releases. My ones on the beach replenishment issue here at the shore were very popular. And the posts that followed up with them have really taken off on both ends with people pro and con about the beach replenishment. I don't know if you know what happened, but for the first time in 30 years, beach replenishment funding was not in the budget. And our where we live, like New Jersey has so much coastline as well as low-lying areas. And we've seen that FEMA funding has been denied for places that have had flooding due to storms in the past, in the past. I believe West Virginia, Maryland, I forget what the third state was. And so this beach replenishment funding is a really, really big deal here because we're not even into the winter storm season yet. And we've already had a big nor'easter earlier in the week, as well as Hurricane Erin that decimated the north end of Ocean City, where the ocean goes right up to the dunes now, which then goes in the boardwalk and the small businesses. One of my friends who lives in Ocean City had 18 inches of water outside of her house for 2 days and couldn't leave her house. And our representative was just like, oh, that's not true. There was funding. Well, the original funding was for $200 million. It was dropped down to $60 million. And I believe that was it. It could, maybe it's billion, but I think it was million, but regardless. And it was already allocated to other places other than New Jersey. So there is no funding, even though Jeff Van Drew is saying that he's going to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure it gets done. We shall see. He's said things in the past that haven't transpired. So we'll see if that happens now.
Were you seriously impacted by Sandy? I remember that was a bad storm.
Mhm. So in my area, there was significant impacts along the coastal communities. North of us is where it really, really got impacted. My cousin lives in this little town called Mystic Island, also known as Little Egg Harbor. They have lagoons. Her
Mhm.
house had 3 feet of water in it. Her house was condemned afterwards. When she was finally able to go back in, she opened one of the drawers in her kitchen and there were dead fish in there. Yeah, that's how bad it was. So there was a lot of rigmarole that she had to go through in order to get the funding. Their house had to be demolished. They were able to rebuild. Luckily, her husband and she are both very handy and crafty, and he did all of the interior work himself and had friends that could put the pilings in. They had to raise it, I believe, 11 or 13 feet off of the ground in order to get the funding. My house, my area had a lot of trees that went down. Thankfully, our house wasn't impacted by down trees. They either went like across, like parallel to the house or across the street, not like on any of our property. One just dinged the house. I still have a dent in my gutter and in my siding from it, but the most damage that I personally received was like holes in my pool cover. But other people weren't as lucky. And there are still houses that were never rebuilt.
I see, I saw on your Ballotpedia page that you're a yoga instructor. How'd you go from yoga to politics?
So my background is very, very diverse. So I was a retail store manager for over 30 years. And during that time, I was taking yoga classes. And I decided to do the yoga teacher training, not to teach, but for the personal inquiry, to just go through the whole mental aspect of it, learn more about the practice as well, and really to just challenge myself for something new. I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn new things. And then when I finished teaching, they had said, do you want to teach a class? Like, I don't have somebody to teach. Can you like sub and teach a class? And I'm like, okay. So I started just substituting at the studio where I was taking classes and also working the front desk.
Hmm.
And then my mom developed dementia. So I left retail after 30 years in order to become the primary full-time caregiver for my mother while she battled that horrible disease.
Oh.
And while that was happening, I was able to, I had some people reach out to me to teach private classes. So I started teaching private classes, which I still do to this day.
Mhm.
And I teach them in person, I teach them from at home. And that's how I transitioned from like retail into yoga instructor. But I also, when I was taking care of my mom, transitioned into working with tech online. So I work with software companies to help onboard their clients to their platform.
Mhm.
And then with politics, when it came time to about it, and I was talking to my son about it, it was like looking back on my history, like my work experience and everything that I've done, is like I've always built relationships. I've always identified problems and their root causes, and then found and developed workable solutions and not band-aids, but like things that would stand the test of time that could go forward.
Mhm.
And those are three things that I would bring to Congress with me because that's what's important is, building those relationships both within your party and across the aisle, identifying what the issues are, which we have many, and like what their root causes are so we can start at the beginning, and then finding solutions. And I have a lot of ideas on how to make things better.
That picture in back of you is that's a portrait of you, right?
Yeah. Mhm. Yep. So
Is,
when
is
I
it,
go ahead.
is it painted?
I did, yeah. So I just want to clarify, I'm not from money. My parents were blue collar workers. My dad was an electrician. My mom was an operating room nurse. I graduated from Mainland in the top 10 of my class. So I worked really, really hard, got good grades. I worked 3 jobs in the summertime, and I got accepted to the University of Pennsylvania. I went on grants, student loans. My parents had loans, so again, it's a big money school, but it wasn't. I wasn't a legacy. My parents didn't just write a check. Like we really worked hard to get me there. And then I was accepted to a study abroad program where I spent my junior year abroad in Florence, and I was an art major.
Mhm.
I was all science, math, and music throughout my high school years, from elementary to high school. And then when I got to college, I was just like, I want to do something different. So I decided to be an art major. And when I was in Italy, I had an independent study on portraits. And so I painted a portrait of myself. And I also
Right.
I did my brother and my sister as well and gave them those.
So you studied in Italy?
Yeah.
How
For a year.
exciting. Did
hmm
you go to Rome?
Yes, I did. I
Did
was
you
based in
see,
Florence, but I went to Rome several times.
so you saw the Sistine Chapel and everything, right?
I not only saw the Sistine Chapel, but my art history class had a private tour, and I was able to lie on the floor of the Sistine Chapel and look up at it.
That must have been awesome.
Yeah. And when I was there, it was only so I was there from July of 1987
Hmm.
through the beginning of May 1988.
Hmm.
And I went to Rome in the summer, I went in the spring, and I went in the fall. And I was able to see the progression that was being made as they restored the Sistine Chapel. And they would move the I'm trying to think of the support system that they were using for the artists, and they could move it down. You know, it
Mhm.
started here and go down. You could see the progress it was making. And then for my 40th birthday, I treated myself to a trip over there so I could see
Oh.
the completed chapel,
Hmm.
which was just absolutely breathtaking.
So is the food a lot different in Italy?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. It's a lot fresher. It's one of the things here, it's smaller portions. You know,
Mhm.
so when you go to dinner, you might have 4 or 5 plates, but they're all tiny. They're not
Right.
like the big jumbo things that you see here, like what we get when we go to, like, I know if I go to an Italian restaurant and I order like chicken parm, veal parm, chicken marsala, like whatever, it's huge. Usually I can split it up into 2, if not 3 days.
Right.
Over there, the portions are very, very small. And it's just, I don't know. There's just something about it. It's fantastic. And they're all different, depending on where you go. So there are, the further south you go, the more tomatoey it becomes. The further north you go, it's more wine and white sauces.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So on TV, did you watch Stanley Tucci when he did
Hmm.
the tour of Italy? What'd you think of that?
I loved it. It brings back fond memories, and I'm able to reminisce. The places that he went are newer places because remember, like I was back there in the 80s and then again in 2007. So I haven't been there in almost 20 years. So the places he went were all new, but the scenery and the streets he was walking down definitely brought back wonderful memories. Wonderful memories.
That's great. So, as an Italian American, I love to talk about this stuff.
Well,
Uh,
what's interesting is I am the resident Italy travel expert, even though I'm by far an expert. But I'm able to, when my friends go to Italy, they'll say, "Hey, I'm going here. Where do I need to go? What do I need to see?" And I'm like, "How long do you have?" And they're like, "I have one day." I'm like, "Okay, so," and I'll tell them little tips and tricks about it. So I'll
mhm.
say, so if you want to go to Florence and you want to see the whole town beneath your feet, either go up to Piazzale Michelangelo or you want to climb the Boboli Gardens behind the Pitti Palace. So one will take you like north, one will be south, but you'll see all of Florence at your feet. And I say, if you want to go to Rome, okay, go to the Pantheon first, and look up at the dome, get the scope of how large it is, okay, and then go to St. Peter's. And then when you go to St. Peter's and you look at the baldacchino over the altar that was done by Bernini, that was made by the melted down iron crossbeams of the Pantheon.
Wow.
And then if you look at the floor, this is my other little thing because I could geek out on this all day long. If you walk through the front doors of St. Peter's, right down the center nave and look at the floor, there are medallions that have the next largest churches in the Western world on them. So you can actually stand on that medallion, look behind you, and see how much larger St. Peter's is than that church.
Wow.
Mhm.
So,
So when you go, you can take me with you. I can be your personal tour guide.
I'd love that. What unique qualities would you bring to the table if elected?
So I like to say when I'm elected, as opposed to if I'm elected. So when I'm elected, what sets me apart is that I'm a single mom, and I struggled with getting child support from my ex, being a single parent. I had a nice little community around me that helped support me, but I think being a single mom adds a whole nother dynamic and perspective to politics than somebody who has not had that experience. My daughter has battled significant mental and behavioral health issues for over 20 years. We still battle them to this day. That's another aspect that sets me apart. I know that mental illness and behavioral health are significant issues throughout our entire country, but that's something else that I can bring to the table that I can talk about how I had to fight for resources in order to get her through school, to get her through high school. I was a caregiver for 5 years. That's something that none of my opponents have dealt with, even though there are 43 million people in the United States that are family caregivers and unrecognized and unpaid. And that's another thing that I can bring to the table as well. And I'm different from my opponents. I'm different than what's in Congress right now. As I said, I consider myself a simple girl, even though I can be kind of complex. But
Mhm.
I don't believe that money belongs in politics, and I stand by that by signing the candidate integrity pledge. No one else in New Jersey has done that. There's only 22 of us throughout the entire country that have done it. As much as people talk about how much we need to get money out of politics, I'm standing by my word.
Now, what is that pledge?
It's called the Candidate Integrity Pledge, and it is through a group called Money Out of Politics movement.
Mhm.
And it's where people who are running for office can sign the pledge that states that they will be transparent in their finances, that they will not accept money from super PACs, dark money nonprofits, special interests, or lobbyists, that they will disclose their donors readily and quickly, and just be transparent with what's going on. And I firmly believe that.
Mm.
I'm also, as I said before, I'm not the darling of the Democratic Party. I'm kind of an underdog, so to speak.
Mhm.
But I firmly believe that I can win because I am completely different than my opponents who are running. We've never had a woman run or win this district in the past. The person who has come closest to beating Jeff Van Drew in the past three elections was a woman. So I think I have more momentum than the gentlemen who are running. And I'm real. I'm genuine. I'm authentic. What you see is what you get. When you see me out on the street, I'm just like this. I don't put on any airs or pretend to be someone that I'm not.
I'm a baby boomer, and
Hmm.
I've been interested in politics and society from the time I was very young. And over the years, I've seen a lot of hate and
Hmm.
division in this country. Would you comment on that?
Yeah. I think that the hate and division is only getting worse. And it is something that we need to address. It is something that we need to overcome because we are all Americans. And there is far more that bind us together than tear us apart. We just have different ways of looking at how to get there. Unfortunately, and I too have been a student of history and interested in politics for some time. And if you look back at the last 60 years, we've made some tremendous progress, with the Civil Rights Act, and we go, the ACA, like there are things that have gone that have been really, really good, but then we end up taking three or four steps back because there are people who don't want to progress, move forward or progress, that they want to go back to the way things are. Where, and I'll be frank, where white men were in charge and they weren't threatened by women or people of color. And I think a lot of what we see with the hatred that is out there is because there are people who feel threatened that their rights are being taken away. But rights aren't like pie. Just because somebody else gets rights doesn't mean yours are taken away. It makes for a more vibrant world, a more vibrant community when we have more people of diverse backgrounds and interests participate. And what we've seen throughout the country, and I can speak to this especially in South Jersey, but the areas where you see the most blight, the least amount of progress are those that are being run by Republican officials, whether it's the municipal councils, the county commissions, or even if you have a Republican assembly people, congressmen, you go up to governors and the whole line. And when you think about that, it's it's all based on hatred. It's all based on not wanting other people to prosper and take advantage of the insights and the things that they can bring to the table to make a more robust community and move forward.
Mm. So, one last question, and people smile when I say this. If your fairy godmother came down to you, handed her magic wand, and said, "You have one wish to make this country better," what would you wish for?
My one wish to make this country better if I had a fairy godmother would be to eliminate prejudice and bigotry.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
That would take an awful lot of work, wouldn't it?
It would. It would. It's very, and you know what? And I can speak to this from a personal level. My father grew up in the 20s and 30s, or the 30s, I should say. He was born in 1929 and 30s, and he was a very prejudiced man. And growing up, my myself, my brother, and my sister, and then my kids would hold him to task on things, and we would point out things to him and say, like, if he said things that were derogatory against people of color, you know, we would say, but you have friends. And he'd say, but yeah, my friends are good. And I think that that's the problem that they see is that there are voices within this country that amplify the bad actors, and they attribute the actions of bad actors, you know, a handful of bad actors to an entire group of people.
Hmm.
And they're able to successfully to really denigrate entire populations of this country just because there's a handful of people who did something bad that belong to that group. But they don't look at themselves and say the same thing about their own group. You know, it's all like these people are all this, these people are all that. And it's like you're punching down on minorities without looking in the mirror and admitting the things that your own people do that are atrocious as well.
So, anybody that's listening to this or watching this, if they want to volunteer for your campaign, make a small contribution, how could they reach you?
So they can reach me through my website, which is Terry Reese for njcd2.com. Do you want me to spell it out for you?
If you'd like.
Okay, so it's TerriReese, the number two, at Gmail. Or I'm sorry, .com. My email's at gmail.com. But
Right, right.
yeah, and as you said, I'm looking for volunteers primarily when people say, what can we do to help? Host a meet and greet in your home or at a small local business. You know, that would be great to get my name and my face out there. I'm all about shaking hands, meeting people because people are the ones who vote. Money doesn't vote. Might get you materials, but it doesn't vote. If you want to contribute to the campaign, that's great. If you want to sponsor or do an in-kind donation, such as like I'll buy your next 1,000 business cards, fine, terrific. I'm more about meeting the people than worrying about money as much as that doesn't really set well with people.
Hmm. Okay, Terry, this has been a really wonderful conversation. Um, so you've been listening to Terry Reese, and you're running for Congressional District 2, is it?
Yep, two in New Jersey in 2026.
And I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Focus on the Candidates. If you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks, Terry. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Thank you, Cynthia. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.